Thank you all for coming. I'm super happy to have you. This is a very special webinar. We typically do our community meeting at this time, but we wanted to do something different today to show you a bit about a use case of Kleros that is not that well known, but is one of the actually more popular use cases and the one that brings more actual cases into Kleros, which is certification and curation. So we have a bunch of extremely good speakers that will review different aspects. I'm just going to give you a short introduction about this. So as you know, we are in a world where we are having more and more crypto assets being created every day. This is growing exponentially. And what's happening is that the capacity to like regulate all this grows because technology grows also, but only linearly against this exponential growth of all of these assets that are issued every day. And this creates like a very big fraud risk, right? One of a few weeks ago, Brian Armstrong from Coinbase mentioned this. He was saying that they are receiving they are 1 million tokens every week being created, and there's no way they can review all of these new tokens to be listed at Coinbase or in any other exchange, right? So the thing is that how can we address this problem? And can certification be one of the solutions that we can use to resolve this problem of growing amount of crypto assets against not growing capacities for regulation? Just a very short introduction to Kleros, because there might be people from the audience that don't know it. So Kleros is a dispute resolution protocol. The use case we typically pitch is about Alice and Bob. Alice is an entrepreneur from France, and she hires Bob to make like a website or a video for her. And then, of course, they are in different countries. She's in France, he's in Guatemala. If there was a dispute between them because of the quality of the product, I mean, she wouldn't go to look for a lawyer in Guatemala and go to court. But what if there is a different method? What if she makes a payment, deposit into a smart contract with the money for the website, and then they both agree that if there is a dispute, there's going to be Kleros to solve it. If there's no dispute, all is good, everybody's happy. She gets the product, he gets the money. But if there is a dispute, then money stays locked into the smart contract as an escrow, and then this goes to Kleros. Kleros will pick a panel of jurors who are going to study the case, analyze the evidence, the contract, and the product, and then each of them independently is going to vote who is right. Why is Kleros built on blockchain? Well, because you need trustability, that nobody is going to tamper with the evidence, nobody is tamper with the jury selection process, and nobody is going to tamper with the vote counting process, okay? So people vote, and then let's say that Alice wins, and the funds in the smart contract are sent back to her, and this finishes the situation, okay? So very simple explanation of Kleros. And Kleros has lots of different use cases. Some of them are for moderation of social media, disputes in e-commerce, well, esport, lots of different things, and you can watch lots of videos from us discussing those use cases. But we're going to speak about something that we launched already 6 years ago, which is called Tokens by Kleros. So this is an app we launched by then, and it was an app that was used for betting tokens that were submitted to exchanges for being listed. Okay, so you have people who wanted their token to be listed, and we developed this process to build a community-driven process to decide which tokens comply with the rules to be listed. Okay, so Alice wants her token listed, so she makes a submission with a deposit, and then if nobody objects about the submission because the token complies with the rules, so the token is listed and she gets back the deposit. But what happens if now she sends another token with another deposit, and then Bob thinks that, oh, this is not compliant because this is an impersonation, it's a scam, whatever. So he can make another deposit, and now there's a dispute between the submitter and the challenger. The submitter claims that the token is compliant. Challenger says no. So this goes to a Kleros panel, jurors analyze the evidence, and then they will, in this case, vote that the token does not comply with the rules, so the token is rejected, and the challenger gets the deposit done by the submitter. Okay, this is a very simple crypto economic mechanism to make sure that every token that is accepted into the list will be reviewed by the community following strict rules. Okay, so but then we worked with an exchange called Edfinex that wanted us to make a bit of a more complex logic for decision making. So we built a badge that had a number of conditions that were about how the team behind the project was, I mean, how the technology worked, and a number of other conditions that were required to consider that the token was safe enough to be listed in this Edfinex exchange. Okay, and Kleros was like a filter that would be the first filter when you wanted your token to be listed on Edfinex. You would have to send it to Kleros. Kleros would make this process to make sure that it's not a Ponzi, etc. And then after you pass this filter, then only the team would review the token and make the final decision. Okay, but this was super useful for them because they got every week they had 100 tokens to review. So this process would filter out 95 of those tokens. So they only had to worry about 5. And this was extremely good. It worked extremely well. And we had some very famous cases of the Kleros lore. A very famous case was called Buyer Chain. So Buyer Chain was a token project. They wanted to be listed. They made the submission, and they got challenged. And what happened? So someone claimed that this guy, Scott Bingley, who claimed to be the CTO of the project, something didn't smell well because the guy was apparently the CTO of an important project, but there were no YouTube talks, no papers. I mean, something didn't quite, look good here. So the guy claimed that he was part of a blockchain group at Oxford. So one of the jurors actually called Oxford and asked for Scott Bingley, and people answered from Oxford, look, we have no idea who Scott Bingley is, and there is no such thing as a blockchain group at Oxford. So this was all a scam. This was stock photo. The guy didn't exist, so it was all a scam. 6 months later, so the token got rejected, of course. 6 months later, we read on the news that the Chinese police makes a number of arrests into a project called Buyer Chain, accused of being a Ponzi. And it took the Chinese police 6 months. I mean, how many people got scammed during that time, and how much more safety there would have been in the ecosystem if Kleros was accepted as a certification method to remove that token as soon as was detected by this curation method. Okay, so this is a very practical and real, actually this happened thing about how this process can work. Okay, so this was 2019. This is how we were thinking about this in the very early days. But then we, got more. Crypto gave us more. And what happened? Enter NFTs. And NFTs were a huge place for fraud because there were lots of different things done, in terms of fake NFTs, impersonation, falsification, everything that you can imagine. So people would steal art and virtual art from someone else and put it online, make an NFT and sell it. And this is how lots of people got scammed. There were even lots of people, lots of money, and even Banksy was impersonated. So for people selling works from Banksy, saying they were from Banksy, but they were not. So can we use the same certification for DeFi into NFTs? Of course we can. It was the exact same mechanism we had developed before. You want your NFT to be listed into this OpenSea or NFT marketplace. Okay, make the submission with a deposit. So now it stays visible for the community to see. And people would ask, okay, does this comply with the listing rules? So is this NFT submitted by the author, or this is just someone who stole it? This guy has the right to actually mint and sell the NFT. And if there is no objection, all fine, you get your NFT listed, you get your deposit, all good. And then you get the certification badge that this NFT now is acceptable as like a safe and not scam NFT. Again, you want another NFT listed, but this one is a impersonation, or this is a fake one. Make the deposit, you get challenged by someone, then you go to the jury trial at Kleros, and the panel will decide that your NFT is a scam, so you would lose your deposit and your NFT is removed from the list. Okay, again, the same mechanics that we developed, and then you could end up having a very large list of NFTs that went through the process and then that they got this certification. Okay, if you want to learn more about this, I actually gave a talk at HCC a few years ago. Here's the title, Decentralized Justice Solving Disputes in NFT Marketplaces. That was at the peak of the NFT, craze. So very good talk. I explain how this works, and yeah, go there if you want more. And one more thing. So, real world assets. This is something that we have been exploring for a while. And a few years ago, we made an agreement with the Maker Foundation to fund the research from one person in our fellowship program to research something that was very important in the early days of DAI. So when DAI started, they only had the collateral done with Ether. But of course, over time, they wanted to open and have more asset types as collateral. So they started accepting more crypto assets. But the holy grail was to start accepting real world assets. Imagine if a house or the stocks or bonds or a car or a motorcycle could at some point become an asset, that you could use as a collateral to mint DAI. Okay, this was all of the movement that happened in the context of the multi-collateral DAI, and this is extremely hard to put together because when you have this problem, you have some asset that is going to be a collateral. How do you make sure that that asset, actually exists if it's from the real world? How do you know that this car exists or this house exists? And if it exists, how do you make sure that if this has to be liquidated, it can, because maybe the house exists, but then you go to to have the eviction with the token. Hey, this token represents a house. Please get this person evicted. And what is the judge going to say? Yeah, sure, no. So you need to verify that every token, every real world asset that is going to have representation on chain actually goes through first a number of verification. That means that real world asset actually can be used as a collateral. So with the Maker Foundation, we did this research. It was like very early stage research, but we decided to build this badge with three main ideas, right? So is this token representing this asset compliant with some code requirements? It's not going to be hacked. So is this compliant with the risk requirements and with some legal requirements in the sense of this, is actually an asset that could be liquidated in case of need, okay? So the way in which we thought this would work, lots of people, imagine everyone would want to have their asset become, a collateral for the DAI. So they will make a submission. Then there will be like a verification instance done by Kleros in the same way as with the DeFi tokens and the NFTs. And then after that, we get to a pool of acceptable assets. And then the Maker Foundation would decide which assets would actually be part of the DAI collateral, okay? Based on their governance process and all that. So if you want to learn more about this, Marvin Cody was after a quite long recruitment process for the right person to do this research. So Marvin is a securities lawyer from Canada, and he did this research. You can actually watch the video where he presents the results and the conclusions in this QR. So this is a super interesting thing to watch. And this was 2020, right? So imagine how early this was in the moment, when we were thinking of all this. So certifications are a very good market approach to self-regulation. This is an entirely private process. This is the industry can self-regulate, deciding which tokens are not scams, which NFTs are not fake, and which real-world assets are acceptable. So this is the approach from which we think about certification. And if we actually can nail this and have the community work on this certification process, we can help a lot in a world of more and more crypto assets being issued every day. We can increase the capacity for regulators. And when I say regulators, I'm not saying only governments, I'm only saying like private regulation, like exchange listing, for example, okay? So we can scale that at the same level as the number of crypto assets that are going to be issued. So all this introduction, so you get a bit of understanding of how this works, how we started, how we think about this, and now we're going to have a few speakers who have also been exploring this way of doing certifications on chain. We have Mike from OpenVino, who is going to speak about certifications in the organic wine industry. Then we will have Dennis, who is going to speak of a very similar approach, but in the dairy industry. Also, two people working in food. Then we had Andres, who is from Chile, and he was going to speak about the cybersecurity industry. I don't know if he will make it because of, speaking of cybersecurity, apparently. So there is a big power blackout in Chile. So if he doesn't make it, I mean, we will have him some other day come and do his talk. But yeah, that's another approach to certification. And then we will speak, Fortunato will speak a bit about how we are actually working with this in terms of product, how you can implement this, and yeah, how to start from a very practical perspective. So thank you very much for coming, and I will leave you with our first speaker, who is going to be Mike. Thank you, guys.